Hi, Benjamin Cotter here, helping making your rental investment successful. Today we're going to talk about the one thing that landlords should all do. Now we gathered a poll of all of our landlords and our experience and investors and our property managers and figured out what would be the one thing that we should tell property managers, and we got overloaded, and so we came up with three. So hopefully you're okay with three big tips that all landlords should know. First big one that we always talk about and that we always hear: thoroughly screen and background check your tenants, your future tenants moving in. Huge red flags that can come up at the end of that process that can avoid long-term repercussions down the road. Background checks include, credit check, criminal. You want to look at their rental verification history, look at their revenue, make sure they can actually afford the place. The big one, the rental verification history, that means physically or call the previous landlord or landlords and see how this renter was. Were they late on payments? Did they trash the place? Were they a nuisance to the other neighbors around the area? That's the biggest clue we get, and make sure it's the true previous landlord. Sometimes they'll slip a friend in there or something like that where you call. So you always want to make sure it's truly the landlord, that their previous landlord. That's a huge indicator of how they're going to be with the tenant. Tenants are what they were before, they're going to do the same, unless you kind of set up that process and change them in that way. But it's very difficult, so always look for the previous landlord, check how the history was, see how they did. Second thing, establish proper communications and expectations with these tenants. Be responsive. Set those expectations from the beginning. Line out, this is what I expect from you. I expect you to water these plants. I expect you to do this. I expect you to pay rent online at this date, and this is how you pay it. If you're late, this is what's going to happen. Set the expectation if you're going to visit the home a lot. If you're going to be there to do mid-lease inspections, maybe twice a year or every quarter, set those expectations so they're aware of it and prepared for it. Being responsive goes along with that. If you're super ultra responsive, usually that's killer. That's the best way to do it. But life gets in the way. We understand that's hard to be super responsive, but be as fast responsive as possible, especially when there's a huge maintenance issue or emergency maintenance. That's the time to shine. We love those opportunities because we can shine in those times to really help and facilitate the repairs quickly. And we went over the tenants really, really quickly on those decisions. Key thing for that is always make sure you're also with that, you always want just do the right thing. If you mess up, make it right. If there's an AC out in Arizona and it's 120 degrees outside, fix it as soon as possible, or get them into a motel, or bring in some coolers. If they're freezing in Minnesota and the heat goes out, bring space heaters, bring blankets, get them a hotel. Do the right thing by them. Even if you don't know exactly what the best way is, do what you think is best. Might not be the exact law, to the eye, but to the dot to the eye, but just go out and do it as best you can. Usually when you try hard and show effort, the tenant's going to recognize that and work with you. But if you do the right thing by them, hopefully they do the right thing by you, and you're kind of that synergies going forward. Big key though is always be responsive. If they send you an email, try to return as fast as possible. If they send you a call them back as soon as possible. The next thing, a lot of investors don't do this, especially if it's your first investment, but set up metrics or benchmarks of key things that you want to hit, or that your competition or your other competition is your other landlords in the area. How are they performing? We like to call it performas, and we do those every year to analyze it, to really review how we did and what things we need to change. If we're for some reason getting less revenue than the properties next to us, we need to figure out why. Now this is very normal in the multifamily when you have a big plus, 50 plus unit community. But for single family investors, sometimes they don't do this. And it's a key thing, we think, to set metrics. At work, you always measure yourself and set goals. Do the same thing for your investments. Make sure you set those, we call them pro forma or key metrics, with revenue minus expenses or whatever you want to perform on, how fast you get the house rented, days vacant, things like that, maintenance requests. You can always set these key metrics, get that data and compare it. Zillow Research has a good comparable tool that you can do. Home Union has great data that you can see and see what your competition is doing. Talk to your fellow investors in the area, see what they're doing. If you have that data and you have these benchmarks, if the economy starts changing or metrics starts changing, you're able to identify those really quickly and adapt to it, and you'll be in the forefront of the changes. So we love that. We do that with all of our owners every year. It's a great tool. Do that with yourself, perform it yourself. We can give you some worksheets. Call us, contact us, we can help you with that. Big thing with all this, again, be responsive to your tenants, set expectations, build your pro forma, which is awesome, and do a thorough background check. That's really, really important. We live by that and die by that. But hopefully you can figure those out. If you have any questions or you need help doing all this, we're pretty much experts. I don't want to say it, I don't want to gloat, but we're experts at this. We can help you out, find the tenants, and help you send these benchmarks and performance.